I was thrilled to be asked to participate in the Annie Sloan Satin Paint Challenge for Australia and New Zealand, and this is the piece that I used. She is a vintage chest blanket box and needed a bit of work, but she had the funkiest feet and I was going to make her work. The top is timber veneer and she does have a bit of damage and most of the corners are all lifting, so what I'm doing is I'm putting some PVA wood glue into the syringe and I'm using the pressure of the syringe to push it into the layers that are all separating. And then I'm going to wipe off the excess and apply a clamp and leave it overnight. In the meantime, I am going to remove this detail that's on the front. It is lovely, but I need a flat front because I am going to be applying some decoupage papers later. So I had to use the sander with some 80 grit to really wear it down. But I did make a little bit of damage, so I come in with some wood putty and then I will come in again with the sander with a fine grit and make it nice and smooth. This is Builder's Filler. It comes in a variety of names, brands, available at your hardware store. It's a two-part system where you add a hardener and you have to do this rather quickly. And I'm using this to repair the bit of damaged veneer on top. I have put a bit of a board brace at the back so I get a nice flat back, and when I'm adding the filler here, I'm putting excess on so I can sand it down flat into place. It dries like concrete really quickly, like within 20 minutes. And so now I'm removing that bit of back plating and I'm sanding with 80 grit to get down to surface level, and then I will come in with some finer grit, probably 240, to make the whole surface smooth. There's obviously a lot of surface imperfections that have to be dealt with, and I use a lot of wood putty to fill in any areas of previous wear and tear, especially around the feet like this, and then I give it all a bit of a sand so it's nice and smooth. And on the feet especially, I'm going to pop on some felt, which gives the feet a bit of clearance from the ground. Now I'm giving the whole piece a good clean with some methylated spirits. I like to use this because it dissolves grease and grime and gets rid of dust, but I'm avoiding the areas that I have put the wood putty. Now it's time to add a primer to the whole piece. So I'm using Annie Sloan Satin Paint and I'm not sure whether there's going to be any bleeds. So I'm just going to put this primer all over the piece. As I mentioned before, I painted this piece for the Annie Sloan Satin Paint Colour Challenge, and these were the chosen colours, and I'm going to go through them individually. The first colour up is Cotswold Green, and it's a very pale green, but I'm using it as the base underneath my decoupage paper, and as you can see, it is very different to the primer. So when I put my decoupage paper on, you can actually see it through the light aspects of the paper. And here she is, all ready with her Cotswold Green on. Next, we're going to use Carnaby Yellow, and this is going to be one of the main base colours. So I'm first doing the top. So this is a chest, and this part that I'm painting on is part of the lid that I repaired. I'm using a roller to apply the carnaby yellow to the top of the lid to get a really lovely smooth finish. And you can see, you cannot see actually, where I did that repair. Here I'm taping up to put the next layer of colour on. Which is Cambrian blue. The coverage is really good. I was so surprised, but I still do give it 2 coats. She's looking pretty good so far. So here's the inspiration behind this piece, because everyone knows I love to decoupage, and Annie Sloan has these decoupage papers, and this particular one called Roundabout matches the color selection perfectly. Now here I am doing a lot of measuring because we are using patterns and you need to get it symmetrical, so there's a lot of measuring involved. So when they say measure twice, cut once, I measure at least 4 times before I cut. One thing to take into consideration when you are cutting a panel piece is to make sure it's a little bit wider than the space, so you aren't caught short on either side, because sometimes the panels aren't even. Your paper might be square, but your panel may not be square, and it's always better to have a little excess than to be too short. I always leave it longer at the bottom so I can trim the excess before I paste it. And I always like to seal my paper with a non-water-based spray varnish. Now I'm taping up for the next layer. So I'm coming in with the lovely carnaby yellow, and like the Cambrian blue, it covers really, really well, but I do give it 2 coats all over. Here's the 4th colour in the Chosen Colours, Knightsbridge Green, and I'm using a dot art tool to apply some dot art to the paper. So here she is, and I think she's magnificent. She's come a long way. She was going to be thrown out by my friend Jenny, and I saved her because I loved her funky little feet. And even though she had some issues with veneer on the top, I've managed to fix them, and I've put new hinges on, you can see, and I think she looks quite amazing. I really hope you've enjoyed this makeover, and if you'd like to see more of my work, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for watching.